hard is it to get a medical exemption from getting the COVID vaccine? Well, at one Washington doctor's office, it's pretty easy.
Did the doctor ever ask you if you had a medical condition that would exempt you from a vaccine?
Nope. Apparently, all you need is a couple $100.
That's you signing the documents right there, doctor. Are you running a vaccine exemption mill here?
Meanwhile, if you're trying to find a COVID booster before Thanksgiving, that might be tricky. Demand is actually pretty high right now. And for all you vegans out there, let's dive into the history of your favorite meat-free Thanksgiving dish, which was invented in Hood River. Here's the story.
Hang on to your hats for the TOFURKY scoop. Journalism. I'm Maggie Vespa. Welcome to The Story, the show where your questions and your comments on all topics reign supreme. They seriously drive our coverage. So reach out, email thestory@kgw.com and use that hashtag, TheStoryKGW. It's at the bottom of the screen here. Let us know what you think. Let us know what you want to see. All that good stuff. And now that that's done, let's get right to tonight's big story. Boy, this story's headline, vaccine exemptions for sale in Washington. Seriously, it's as simple as that. Let's back up, though. In a world where vaccine mandates spark protests and prompt resignations, exemptions have been a hot topic. You know that, we know that. Questions like, who can get an exemption? Why can one get an exemption? Well, tonight, we're asking another question. How many of those exemptions are actually legit? And the reason we're asking is that our sister station in Seattle, King 5, got a tip about a doctor giving out medical vaccine exemptions to basically anyone with some cash. Here's Chris Ingalls.
I would have assumed that they would be following CDC guidelines and they would stay masked up.
Step inside Awake Health, and you might think you've gone back in time, before the pandemic. You'll see the receptionist and another staff member who often don't wear masks. Same for the doctor when she appears at the counter.
She said she will not be wearing a mask, but we're free to wear ours or not wear ours.
Jeff and Shelley Gann's surprise turned to anger when, they say, the doctor spent their entire half-hour appointment raging about coronavirus restrictions.
So it was very shocking, her behavior.
You don't have to ask patients. You can hear those views right from the doctor's own unmasked mouth.
So to me, this is a scamdemic. It has little to do with public health at this point. It has more to do with exercising government control.
And you said scamdemic.
Yes, I did.
It's not a pandemic to you.
No.
Do you and your staff wear masks in this office?
Not anymore. I personally don't feel that masks are protecting or helping me in any way, shape, or form. In fact, they increase my anxiety. Laser hair removal, sweet.
It's not her unconventional views or blatant violation of the state mask mandate that sparked our investigation into Dr. Anna Elprin. Weeks before we sat down for this interview, we sent in undercover journalists to investigate a tip that Dr. Elprin was allegedly handing out COVID vaccine exemptions for a price.
So I made an appointment at Awake Health, and I said that I wanted to see Dr. Elprin to talk about a cosmetic procedure.
Our digital investigative reporter, Taylor Meir-Fendereski, made an appointment. Health and beauty is one of Dr. Elprin's specialties.
And I walk into the office, and I'm greeted by a medical assistant who is in the room with me doing the typical things you would expect at a doctor's office, weighing me, taking my height, blood pressure. And then after she's done with those standard procedures, she says, "So are we just doing the COVID exemption today, or are you here to establish care?"
What did you think of that?
Well, I was surprised. I mean, it was very unprompted.
After a brief meeting with the doctor and paying a $150 fee, Taylor walked out with these letters that medically exempt her from wearing a mask or receiving a COVID vaccine, signed by Dr. Elprin.
Did the doctor ever ask you if you had a medical condition that would exempt you from a vaccine?
Nope. There was zero discussion about why I wanted this medical exemption. And, she asked me, "Are you healthy otherwise?" And I explained, yeah.
What would the valid reason be for a vaccine exemption?
I think it's very individual as far as carefully reviewing the past medical history for the patient and discussing with them that based on what their health status currently is.
This is a vaccine exemption form that you signed for Taylor. And you never asked her if she had a medical condition.
I would have no way of knowing any of this based off just a vaccine exemption form. I would have to go back to their chart. I don't have that information stored to memory.
Our October visit confirmed the viewer's tip that Dr. Elprin was signing COVID exemptions for a fee. But before we confronted her, we went back, this time with a hidden camera.
What happened when the doctor came in?
She had the forms in her hand. She just went through them with me, signed them there in front of me, and basically just restated over and over very forcefully that it was a complete violation of HIPAA for them to ask anything about my medical history, vaccinations included, and just filled out the forms right there in front of me.
Did they ask you if you had a medical condition that would exempt you from the vaccine?
They did not.
They charged Kendra $200, $50 more than Taylor paid a week earlier. With these doctor-signed forms, workers can request exemptions from their employers from COVID vaccine and mask requirements. At Ellensburg's largest employer, Central Washington University, records show 86 vaccine and mask exemptions submitted by students and staff. 20% of them, 1 out of every 5, came from Dr. Elprin.
After she was done signing the paperwork, took it upon herself to restate over and over that she would go to bat on my behalf and she would call my employer if I got any pushback.
We went in a third time, again with a hidden camera.
She came in with a whoosh and she sat down in a chair, had paperwork in hand. She definitely didn't ask me anything about my medical condition or my medical history or any real reason why I would actually need to have an exemption. It was $200 for the visit. It just seems like this is what they do all the time, and it was a regular routine.
Our former investigative producer came out with the same signed forms.
Vaccine exemption, mask exemption.
On each form, Dr. Elprin is asserting that the patient has a medical condition. These national experts on medical ethics and law told us there are only 2 valid reasons for a medical waiver from the COVID vaccine.
Either there has to be a demonstrated allergic reaction to one of the ingredients, or there has to have been a demonstrated adverse reaction to an earlier dose.
To me, it's not a rubber stamp. You know, you don't just come and say, I need an exemption. And as your physician, I say, okay, great, I'll sign that, no problem.
You know, that's the whole reason we give you medical licenses. It's not so that you can become a printing press for exemptions.
I'd like to schedule an appointment to get a COVID vaccine exemption.
For our 4th and final undercover appointment, we flat out asked for a medical exemption.
$200? Okay.
Here, the medical assistant did ask the most important question.
Yeah, I was actually pretty surprised when the medical assistant asked me if I have any medical condition that would make me qualified for this exemption. And I was honest with her. I said no. And she didn't seem to mind.
He paid $200 and walked out with the same signed exemption forms after a brief face-to-face with Dr. Elprin.
These are records of 4 people that came in and got medical exemptions with no questions asked.
Once again, just because the person claims to you that they didn't have any questions asked, that doesn't make it such.
You're saying that that didn't happen in those cases?
I have no idea. I told you I would have to go back and carefully review the chart.
That's you signing the documents right there, doctor.
That is me being a physician at work. I have no idea when this picture was taken, and I have no idea what this is referring to.
What you just described is an exemption mill. You hand over money and I ask no questions and give you a piece of paper that satisfies the states that you have an exemption.
Are you running a vaccine exemption mill here?
No.
Where you're taking payments and signing exemptions with no questions asked?
Absolutely not.
All right, so that was Chris Ingalls reporting. Now, state regulators say they have received 12 complaints about this doctor, most of them COVID-related. All of those cases, they say, are closed, except for 2 open investigations, which the Washington Health Department at this point will not talk about. The state also fined her $3,000 in September for mask violations. All right, sticking with vaccines, let's get to this email from Tom. Tom wrote, I've been reading your news stories about how to get the booster shot. I visited each all of the sites, CVS, Target, Rite Aid, Walgreens, small clinics, OHSU vaccine page, and they all say availability is low at this time, or appointments are not available until the last week of December or next year. I've all but given up. I'll wait until sometime next year to get my booster. It was exhausting just reading that. I can't imagine what it was like living it. So with that said, let's bring in Christine Pitawanich. And Christine, you've been covering boosters for the last couple of days for us. Any options that you can think of for people like Tom who are clearly exhausted and just giving up at this point?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, making an appointment is one option, but there are other ways to get a booster. For instance, on the Costco website, it says many locations are able to accommodate people who walk in to get the COVID-19 booster. Oregon's vaccine website also shows other pharmacies like CVS, Walgreens, and Safeway that say appointments are available for walk-in. Then there are other free walk-in clinics. In fact, I visited one at Tektronix. It's a business in Beaverton. The Washington County website says it's one of the clinic locations that the Oregon Health Authority is helping to organize. We spoke with one woman who had been looking for appointments at various pharmacies but kept striking out.
Yeah, we were just surfing on the web and trying to find the right, one, and wanted to get it done before Thanksgiving, and so saw this one and saw it was an open clinic, so we just decided to drive over and get in line.
You just fill a form and just wait, and I think it's pretty easy and simple.
The Washington County website says the Tektronix clinic is generally open for walk-ins Monday through Saturday from 12 to 7 p.m. and Sunday 11 to 4.
That's awesome. That's so good to know and so tangible. We appreciate it. One more question. What about hospitals or even like smaller pharmacies? Are they doing walk-ins too?
Well, both Providence and OHSU are actually encouraging people to make appointments. An OHSU spokesperson says it's all to avoid those long wait times due to a high number of people just walking in and requesting booster shots. As for those smaller independent pharmacies, it really depends. I called one in Salem, for instance, and that one is not taking walk-ins, but some are. This is what I heard when I called LeCare Pharmacy in Northeast Portland.
Pharmacy, we are offering walk-in COVID-19 booster vaccines and first and second doses. Due to the heightened amount of calls we are having, we cannot answer every phone call coming in, so please just come in and get in line Monday through Friday 9 to 6 or Saturday 9 to 1 if you would like a booster or vaccine.
But at the end of the day, it can be pretty hard to know which specific pharmacies are accommodating walk-ins. So right now, the best, most comprehensive source of booster information remains the state websites, getvaccinated.oregon.gov, as well as the vaccine locator website for Washington.
And thank goodness for people like Christine Pitawanich who are doing the legwork for us. Christine, thank you so much. All right, still ahead tonight, love letters from home buyers will soon be banned in Oregon. That is, unless the new law against those letters gets shot down in court. Can't you feel the love? And Oregon's crowded governor's race just got more crowded. The new GOP candidate to watch and the kid trying to claim that title before the campaigning can even begin, sort of.
A vote for Emery is a vote for animals.
We'll explain when this story continues. Hey, welcome back, everybody. Keep sending those questions and comments to the story at kgw.com or use that hashtag, the story KGW, on Twitter. I'm about to tell you something you probably already know. It's not easy to buy a house right now, whether that house is in Oregon or in plenty of other places around the country. So, just for fun, let's take a look at some of the most painful real estate headlines. What's the definition of fun? Oh well. The Oregonian had this 3 days ago. Portland area housing market even more cutthroat for buyers as new listings drop. Very nice. Earlier this month in the Portland Tribune forecast, pressures growing on local housing market. Fantastic. Love it. In October, first-time millennial home shoppers faced cash-rich baby boomers with the nice quote, "Hang in there." The Oregonian again with the encouragement. Thank you so much. And Refinery 29. The dream home is dead. Long live renting forever. Forever renting. Excuse me. I shouldn't butcher poetry. Great. Good to know. So unfortunately, there does not seem to be any end in sight. The average price of a home in Oregon right now is around $500,000. And even if you've somehow managed to scrape together enough to buy a home, congratulations, by the way, the competition is beyond tight. Inventory is really low for several reasons, including investment firms buying up homes to rent them out, and then people turning second homes into vacation rentals. So how do you get a leg up? Well, for a long time, real estate agents give their buyers a little tip. Write a letter, they would say. A love letter, if you will. Pour your heart out to the seller. Tell them about you, about your fam, the life you want to live in the house, the whole nine. Pull at their heartstrings, manipulate them if you have to, and hope that they choose your sappy tale for their beloved abode. Don't manipulate anybody, that's mean. But either way, enter, after all those years of letters, the state of Oregon. Earlier this year, lawmakers decided, no, you can't do that anymore, and they banned love letters to homeowners looking to sell. The reason? Lawmakers argued those letters open the door to discrimination. That's because they argue a seller might be more inclined to pick certain buyers based on things like family structure, sexual orientation, race, religion, and so on. Apparently, people put a lot of stuff in letters. So now this new law, this ban, is set to take effect in January. That is, unless a local real estate company can successfully wage war against the love letter ban. Total Real Estate Group filed a lawsuit against the state's real estate commissioner, saying this law unfairly censors free speech. Here's their attorney.
A lot of sellers want to make sure that their house is used and loved by someone who buys it. They don't care just about the dollars and cents. They care about the emotional aspect of selling the house that they've lived in for years. And so a lot of the times they don't want to sell to an investment firm that's going to rent the house out or use it for an Airbnb. They want to sell it to someone who's going to live in the house. That's one of the big advantages is it allows buyers to communicate that and communicate that they love the house and that they're going to use it and cherish it, live there. That is a big advantage to these love letters. I mean, really what they do is allow a buyer to compete against these big institutional investors that are able to offer better terms, better financing, better conditions. They allow them to have a chance to compete, especially first-time home buyers.
So the attorney filing that lawsuit said that he had never found an instance when someone was discriminated against because of a love letter, and that fair housing laws already exist to guard against that discrimination. We reached out to the Oregon Real Estate Commissioner, and he didn't want to comment on this case because it's pending litigation. All right, let's change gears here and talk about the Oregon governor's race, because this field just got even more crowded, if you can believe it. House Republican leader Christine Drazan now says she plans to launch her campaign in the next few weeks. Drazan will likely become one of the most prominent Republican candidates so far. She's been in the legislature since 2019 and became the House Minority Leader less than a year after she was elected. And Drazan released a statement saying her friends and supporters have encouraged her to run. She added, quote, "It has become clear that Oregonians are ready for change. They are tired," she says, "of the backroom deals, the broken promises, and the failed leadership. They are tired of our state consistently being in the national headlines for all the wrong reasons. Frankly, I am too." Now, like I said, Drazan, look at that. She's joining a pretty crowded race. By our count, more than 24 people have said they're running for governor of Oregon. On the Republican side, that includes Bud Pierce, who ran against Kate Brown in 2016. Try to find him in that group. It's like a lame Where's Waldo, political Where's Waldo. And then there's also the mayor of Baker City, Carrie McQuiston, and the mayor of Sandy, Stan Pulliam. On the Democratic side, the big names are House Speaker Tina Kotek, State Treasurer Tobias Reed. Again, try to find them. It's so much fun. There's also former New York Times columnist Nicholas Kristof. And then finally, we've talked about this. There's also State Senator Betsy Johnson, who we spoke about last night. She's running unaffiliated from any political party, meaning she will not be on the ballot for the May primary, just the general election. Yowza. Now, if there wasn't an age limit to run for Oregon governor, which the minimum is 30 years old, by the way, I have a feeling that we would be talking about another candidate. I want to introduce you to 5th grader Emery Martin, who just won this year's race for Oregon Kid Governor, and she did it with a very important initiative.
Hi, My name is Emery, and I want to tell you about a serious problem that needs to be solved. People are abusing animals all over Oregon. Think of a pet or animal you love. Can you imagine it getting locked in a hot car or left without free water? Can you even imagine it getting hurt? It would crush you if a beloved animal got abused. And that is my cause. I want to help stop animal abuse and help the voices be heard.
Can I just tell you how hard it is to do a walking stand-up? Most reporters try to do it, and I've fallen on occasion. That was really good. So Emery says, by the way, she has a 3-point plan to help stop animal abuse. She wants to create a shelter program. She wants to make background checks mandatory for adopters, and she wants to organize fundraisers and supply drives for pets. A huge congratulations to Emery. She will be inaugurated as Oregon's new kid governor at the state capitol in January. That's so cool. Well done. All right, I want to remind everybody to take your turkey out of the freezer if you haven't already, or your TOFURKY, if that's more your thing. Pretty cool. We're going to talk to the Oregon man who invented the famous vegan dish when the story continues. Welcome back. I like this. Our producer came up with this question. We want to know, for all the non-meat eaters out there, how many of you actually eat TOFURKY on Thanksgiving? Or instead, do you just fill your plate with a bunch of sides? Either is a great option, so let us know. Use that hashtag #TheStoryKGW on Twitter. In the meantime, let's take a look at the history of that meat-free dish. And spoiler alert, it's got local roots. Here's Devin Haskins.
For 10 years, Seth Tibbett had tried and tried to make a vegan-friendly dish for Thanksgiving, but nothing stuck.
I just had a bunch of epic failures, from gluten roast that you couldn't cut with a chainsaw to collapsed pumpkins that were stuffed with rice and veggies.
For years, he was barely getting by, making just $300 a month.
I felt pretty much like a failure. I was kind of thinking maybe this isn't going to work out, and looking to maybe do something else. And then boom, 5 minutes later, here comes TOFURKY.
That life-changing moment came in 1994 when he visited a customer of his, Hans Robel. Tibbett combined his tempeh drumsticks with Robel's tofu turkey roast, and a year later were selling them in stores. They called it TOFURKY.
I always liked the name. I didn't invent the name TOFURKY. I just thought it was fun.
Headquartered in Hood River, Tibbett says in the first year, they sold 818 of the roasts at the high price of $30 a box.
It was $30 a box, but I gotta say, it was a lot of food. It was like 5 pounds of food. We thought like, oh, this would be like 8 vegetarians sitting around a table, because that's what we had. But turns out it was more, 1 or 2 vegetarians going to grandma's house.
The first iterations of TOFURKY went through some changes. The first roast was all tofu, which as a frozen product didn't hold up as well. Today's version has stuffing inside, and the portions were also downsized and now cost less. The vegan-friendly option was an instant hit, selling 1 million roasts by 2001.
It was everywhere. It was in the culture. It said something about America that we were selling all these millions of TOFURKYs.
Still independently and family-owned, TOFURKY now produces 50 vegan-friendly options. They've come a long way from where it first started and have sold more than 6 million of their TOFURKY roasts.
That was Devin Haskins reporting. Seriously, if you've had one, I've never had one, but I think they'd be really great. So let us know what you think. Again, use that hashtag #TheStoryKGW on Twitter or email thestory@kgw.com. We're going to finish the show after this. Quick reminder about the Hey Help campaign. Since we are getting close to the holidays, we're going to ask you to consider donating to the KGW Great Toy Drive. And it's so easy for you to give this year. You can make a cash donation online. We'll do the shopping for you. You can also hold your phone's camera up to this QR code. It'll take you to a donation page, or go to kgw.com/toy drive. You can also drop off a new unwrapped toy at any IQ Credit Union, Fred Meyer, or local Toyota dealership. While you have your phone, follow us on Twitter, email us. We'll never stop begging. That is the end of the story. So let's bring in Laurel Porter now for the news at 6:30.